Hi, welcome to Women in Community. My name is Betsy, and we're here with my good friend Laura. And our theme for our videos this month is the spirit of freedom. And Laura is going to share about freedom in worship, and she is an awesome worshiper, so I can't wait to hear what she has to say.
So I'm a worship leader.
Yes.
I've done that off and on for almost 20 years now, which is kind of hard to believe.
Yes,
it is. It's hard for me to believe. Some years more and others less, and in a lot of different capacities. And so I've done worship leading in, really intimate settings, just a few people and like a small group or a cell group. And then, in larger settings in churches or conferences and here and overseas and in different places, which has been really wonderful.
Sure.
And I can honestly say that there's nothing I love more than worshiping God.
Awesome.
Whether it's in those small settings or in those large settings, whether I'm in the front or in the back, it doesn't matter. But there's nothing like experiencing the presence of God.
That's right.
And the freedom to just worship Him and be in His presence. And, worship isn't really any different in a small group versus in a large group.
Right.
It's not any different whether you're at a huge worship conference with a well-known worship leader, or, you're in your backyard with a couple of friends around the fire.
Okay.
It's not really any different. And a lot of times we kind of think that it's different. We have a higher level of expectation maybe in those big settings.
I would think so.
Right. And sort of a lower level of expectation in someone's basement.
Okay.
But the thing is that God has never changed.
Right.
And what He longs for in a worship time and in a time of connecting with His people, it never changes. Mm-hmm. He's always wanting to bring life. He's always endeavoring to have that exchange of our weakness for His strength and His provision where we feel like maybe we don't have it all together, And so on His side, it never changes. And we know that God never changes. He's the same yesterday, today, and forever. And in fact, Jesus said in John 10:10, the thief comes to take things away. But I've come to give life and life more abundantly. And in some translations, life to the fullest, which is my favorite translation. So then the variable in that time of exchange with God is us. The variable is the vessel, right? It's us. It's what we're willing to put into that time of worship. And so over the years, I've experienced a lot of different worship settings, like I said, and some people who come in when there's 2 or 3 people, it doesn't matter to them, man, they're diving in. They're going to get a connection with God, and they're going to experience the Holy Spirit in their heart in that time. And then some other people that'll come in and they just kind of want to sing the songs, read the words, And I've been around, churches and worship long enough to realize that just because you don't see it on the outside doesn't mean that someone's not having a real intimate time with the Lord on the inside. I realize that. But let's be real. At some level, there's usually at least some of that going on, right?
Sure.
And so, why does it matter how we engage in worship? Why does it matter if we come in to that small setting or that large setting, or even alone in our rooms? Why does it matter? Because Jesus died to open a way for that life-giving exchange. He died to reconnect us to His Spirit. And so, there used to be a really strict rule about who could enter the presence of God.
Right.
And first of all, it wasn't us, was it?
No, and it was only one person a year.
That's right. Once a year. It was a high priest, had to be of a specific lineage. And then there was a whole lot of rules they had to follow in order to enter the presence of God. And He did that to bring atonement for the sins of the people. Right. And there was a separate room. They called it the holiest of holies, or the most holy place, depending on translation. And there was a veil, a thick curtain, a very thick curtain that separated the people from where God dwelled. And so we know that in Matthew 27:51, when Jesus died, that veil was ripped apart, the veil in the sanctuary. And in fact, it says that it was ripped from top to bottom.
Awesome.
That the people couldn't do it, that God had done it, ripped it from top to bottom. And it signified that there was this clear and open way that we could get access to the Father.
Yes.
And to everything that we need there. Hebrews 10:19. I love the Good News translation.
I like it too.
It says, we have then, my friends, complete freedom to go into the most holy place by the death of Jesus.
Wow.
That's what we have access to. We have that liberty to enter his presence freely. Ephesians 3:12, I've got two translations. The New Living says, because of Christ and our faith in him, we can now come boldly and confidently
I like that.
into God's presence.
Yes.
And the Passion says we have free access to God as kings before the Father.
Ooh.
Not as lowly little slaves or begging to come into his presence.
Right.
No, as kings. And there's a footnote in there that I love. The Greek words used there can be translated that we have freedom of speech to say whatever we want with boldness.
Oh, that's so good.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah, that is beautiful.
That's coming into his presence to worship him freely. But it's the choice and the attention that we bring to the table.
Mm-hmm.
That's what makes the difference. He's always there. He's always ready.
Yep.
But it's what we do. Sometimes we get focused on other things. I think we come into worship and we're like, I don't really like that song.
Yeah.
I don't like all the songs we do.
Yeah.
I don't like every song, and that's okay.
And that's okay.
But you know what? God is present.
And you can still connect.
That's
and
right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And so whether it's, again, a small setting and you feel sort of intimidated because maybe there's, are they looking at me? Or you come into a big service and maybe you're more intimidated there, but pouring your heart out to him in worship, coming before him freely and boldly, because if we don't, we unwittingly opt out.
Mm-hmm. That's true.
Maybe
it's easy to do.
Yeah, we don't intentionally think to ourselves, well, I just don't want anything to do with him today. No, we walk into that worship service and we're like, I don't like that song.
Well, we get distracted.
Or we get distracted.
By other people
or even things that are going on in our mind.
Yeah.
We've got things going on in our lives.
That's right.
But
you have to be very intentional.
Intentional is the word.
Mm.
Yeah, we have to be intentional. We have to come into that place ready to connect with him in a very real way. In Ephesians 5, there's a whole passage about making the most of every opportunity.
Mm.
And I love that. When I come into worship, I'm going to make the most of every opportunity. I don't care if there's 3 people in my living room or 1,000 people in a church. I'm going to make the most of that opportunity to be connected with him. And so before we go, I want to read just a little bit of David, some of his writings,
Awesome.
because he had such a passionate heart after God.
Such a worshiper.
He was such a worshiper, and there was no question about where his heart was. You didn't look at David in worship and go, I wonder if he's spending time with God or if he's thinking about his grocery list.
Exactly.
No. In fact, the Bible tells us that he danced with such abandon before the Lord that people were embarrassed. They looked at him and they went, oh, he's the king, he's going to be the king or the king. And he's, oh goodness, and what a mess. No, he didn't care. He was there boldly to say whatever was on his heart with love to his Father. And so in Psalm 63, I'm just going to kind of jump around a little bit. He said, I earnestly search for you. My whole body longs for you. I've gazed upon your power and your glory. Here I am in the place of worship, eyes open, drinking in your strength and glory.
Praise God.
I thirst with deepest longings to love you more, with cravings in my heart that can't be described.
It's beautiful.
I will worship you passionately and with all my heart. Your presence satisfies me like nothing else. With passion, I pursue and cling to you. I keep my soul close to your heart.
That's great. That's
so beautiful. And we've got to take advantage of those opportunities to connect with the Father in worship, because he's opened the way.
He has.
He's completely opened the way so we can come in with freedom and just love and adore him. And so I want to encourage you, every opportunity. Make the most of every opportunity to connect with God in your heart and to connect with him in worship, and just set aside the thoughts, set aside the things you have to do later or the worries that you have, or maybe you don't love that song. God's not waiting for a bigger band or a better worship team or more people. He's just waiting for your open heart. So I pray that you'll connect with him this week. And thank you so much for joining us.